So welcome. I see some folks here that I recognize, and I see some folks here that are new to me. It's lovely to be here together. I'm glad you're here. Hello, Zoomers. I'm glad you're here. I see some folks I recognize. I see some new faces. In 100 years, this will all be forgotten. Isn't that nice? It cuts both ways for us. No one will remember my name in 100 years. It's nice to set down the burden of importance, isn't it? It seems like that makes what we're doing really precious. It seems like when it becomes less important, it becomes more precious. I don't know if that's true. What caused me to think about this isn't my talk, I'll get there. But what caused me to think about this as we were doing Zazen was, we didn't used to record talks. We didn't record talks. For a long, long time, we didn't record the Dharma talk. You are there and you hear it, or you don't, And at some point we started recording them, which was wonderful. I'm really glad that we do. But I remember thinking, as I was listening to a talk during a retreat or on a Sunday morning, like the words I'm hearing are being born and dying as I'm listening to them. This is it. My memory of those words or how they made me feel, what they might have helped me see, was the only thing that would be carried forward. I couldn't go back and revisit them. They're gone. Most of what we do is unrecorded. And so when, hi honey, I'm home, that's it. Even if you say it again, you didn't say it the same way. That was a moment, It was born and it died, and you watched it. You heard it, you felt it, you had a response to it, something arose in you to meet it. That was it. It's precious. It's precious. But what I could also remember feeling, this is pretty early in my practice, is, oh, it's such a good talk. It seems so important. I wish we had recorded it. Which is cool. That's cool. That's part of my little Zen student aspiration. I want to revisit that moment. I want to have that feeling again. I want to be reminded of that teaching. That's beautiful. That's fine. I'm not being critical of that part of me. But I could tell it was coming from this. Of course. Can you feel it? So when I say this sentence, in 100 years, we'll all be gone. Right? I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Every human being knows that. Of course. And so I hope you can feel the part of you that does this. Doesn't like that. It's a crappy way to start a talk, Gusho. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to know about it. I understand that. I really, really do. What I hope, though, as I say that, as I remind you, in 100 years you're gone. You're forgotten. Is that there's another part of you, I hope, that can actually experience not only the truth of course, that being true, but the part of you that isn't hurt by that. The part of you that isn't this. That can see the preciousness and the okayness of that. That can see the small truth of, in 100 years I will be forgotten. In the context of the much, much, much larger truth of, that's absolutely fine. It's okay. There's nowhere to go. Nothing to do. Nothing's lost. It's fine. This is the part that hurts because it's confused. Does that make sense? Like being important, being alive is somehow separate and more important. The insistence of the self is what we're talking about here, right? So I'm only offering that to start off today because relax. Because relax. Plus we're talking about time today. We're talking about time. And so when we make up the imaginary thing called 100 years from now, which isn't a thing, right? But when we imagine that, then we set up this moment in opposition to this, into a future moment, and imagine, if I was remembered in 100 years, I bet that would say something about me. Maybe I'll be more remembered than my sister. That'd be nice. She thinks she's so smart. But maybe if I was the one who was remembered, you can't feel it? So this is just what we're going to play with a little bit today. And I wanted to start by just encouraging you to relax. So it reminded you that you're going to die. So we're talking about waiting today. We're talking about waiting. I'm sure like everybody, I've heard so many versions of this, I don't know what the number is, but whoa, we spend a fifth of our life waiting. Scientists now estimate you spend 31.7% of your life waiting. We spend half of our life waiting. We spend whatever the number is, who knows, right? Whatever. That's not particularly interesting to me. But there's a musician that I follow, and she was on tour and getting ready for an album of her music to be released. And she posted something, and there was something about her word choice that triggered something in me. And I want to revisit waiting. There's something going on here. She's Polish. She's a Polish pianist. And so they move her and her piano around the world, and she performs for people, right? And so what that means is that English is not her first language. Right? She's really good, but it's not her first language. You know? And so I'm aware when I go back and read Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and Returning to Silence, and all this kind of stuff, when I listen to talks by Suzuki Roshi and Katagiri Roshi, they were really, really good, and they got better and better and better the longer and longer they lived here at their English, right? But you could still tell every once in a while they'd use some little phrase that was like, oh, yeah, that's right, you're not from here, because we would never say that, right? And then because they're Zen teachers, we think, oh, maybe they did that on purpose, and there's some sort of like deep undercurrent, you know? Things as it is, like that's not correct. Oh my God, maybe it's deep. Right? Oh, maybe there's a deep Dharma. So I have no idea the layers of what she meant, and I love not knowing because then it allows me to make it up. Right? So here's what she wrote. Her name is Hani Arani. She was in France, evidently, when she wrote this. The end of July was divided into hundreds of pieces, each carrying the heaviest legacy of number and its meaning. No idea. Cool though, right? That's a cool sentence. But what made it really significant is the closeness to August. July was then just a countdown. The days seemed vast and spacious, willing to welcome more than usual and lasting longer than the whole childhood. And then this was the sentence. I occupied myself with activities. This is what people do when they utterly wait for something to happen. That's just a really brilliant, awkward, kind of not quite there, and then therefore all the way there kind of sentence for me. I'm just really into it. I occupied myself with activities. This is what people do when they utterly wait for something to happen. So the reason I'm talking about this today, what triggered it was the phrase utterly wait. Utterly wait. And what came to me was waiting is usually, in my experience, I'm just riffing today. I'm just riffing. Your ideas about waiting are yours. They're probably better than mine. I'm sure there's a lot more that's been written about waiting than what I'm going to say. I'm just playing. Because it matters in Zen, because it involves time, and it involves anticipation, and it involves suffering, and we play a lot with those things. Right? When you were sitting Zazen, were you waiting for Joe to ring the bell? That's interesting. A lot of you laughed. I mean, that's cool, right? That's not a bad thing. I haven't just judged you. You haven't just failed. But like, honestly, what's the difference between just sitting and wondering, I wonder when he's going to ring the bell, and then when that turns into, I hope he does ring the bell, and then when that turns into, dear God Almighty Joe, please have mercy and ring the bell. Like, oh, so now suffering is present. Because this moment is set up against another future moment that's going to be way more comfortable, the after bell moment. Can you feel it? So it's like, this is actually a really big question in Zen. Waiting. Is all Zazen just waiting? I don't know. I'm hoping to ask a bunch of questions today, but I'm hoping to answer very, very, very few. It seems relevant to me, though. So the reason her phrase, utterly wait, which I was like, oh, there's just that awkward English again. I just so dig it. The reason that struck me is the word utterly implies wholeheartedness. To do something completely. Every cell of you is doing it. And I go, oh, now we're into Zen. And so the reason it stuck in my noodle I realized is I'm not sure you can utterly wait. Because wait is already part of you jumping ahead and wanting to jump ahead with increasing ferocity and therefore increasing suffering. Wouldn't utterly waiting be not waiting? I don't know. I mean, I really don't. But that's why I was like, oh, I would love to have a conversation with you about your tour. Because you're in and out of spaces and times in a way that, you know, artists tend to go to these kind of places. They have different relationships with time oftentimes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And so to start with, please close your eyes and take 10 seconds to call to mind something you are currently waiting for. Big or small, doesn't matter. Were you able to find something? Can you find something? Okay. Dharma talks tend to be pretty one-sided, but I'm guessing if we were doing this in a different setting that had more time for kind of back and forth, my guess is that if I had said, please take 10 minutes, pull out your journal and write down 50 things you're waiting for, my guess is that you would have no problem finding 50 things. If we had had longer and I'd said, please write down 500 things you were waiting for. Right. So I just think that's a cool place to start, because it's usually not something I'm fully conscious of in the moment that I'm carrying with me. Dozens of things, maybe hundreds of things that I am living in anticipation of, that I'm waiting for. And the reason this matters to me as a Buddhist is because we're always interested in suffering. That's always the thing. That's always the thing in this room. How does it affect suffering? Is it conducive to the arising of suffering? Is it conducive to the alleviation of suffering? Right? And so I wonder if I am carrying around kind of just a background radiation I'm not usually aware of suffering because of this whole long list of things that I am waiting for. All the ways in which I imagine my experience will be improved, right, by the future arrival of that thing, that experience, that person, that election result, whatever it is, right? We have the term now, arrival fallacy. Some of you have probably heard that if you're into psychology or you're into studying mind science, whatever. The arrival fallacy. Ooh, Google it. It's cool. Some of you are like, oh, I don't know that one. Oh, yeah, Google. Google arrival fallacy. It's cool. It's familiar to all of us. It's just the idea of I'm always waiting for the thing to arrive. And the fallacy part is when it arrives, I'm not happier than I am now. But I'm convinced that I am, and so it continues to re-up. Remember like when you were in elementary school and you're like, those junior high kids, they're so big. Oh, book bags and backpacks. They don't even need name tags. They don't like have their mittens pinned to their jackets anymore, man. Those are big kids. I'm gonna have a locker. Then you've arrived. I mean, when you have a locker with a combination, you have arrived at bigness. You've arrived at importance. And then, right, you get to junior high and you're like, oh man. When I'm in senior high, the lockers are way bigger. Plus then I can be in the varsity squad, and then there's a track team, and then there's swimming. Senior high, that's when we really, boom, fast. You already know where this is going. When I go to college, when I meet that person, when I'm married, when the kid comes, when the degree comes, when the robe comes, when the transmission comes, when the first class comes, and eventually you're like, that was my life. I waited the whole time. Isn't that wild? I mean, we're hardwired to do that, so I don't think we have to set up our awareness practice in opposition to our nature. That's what people tend to do. But what it does seem to me like this practice is really good at doing is, oh, I want to help you see that you do that. Mm-hmm. I understand that you do it, and I understand that you're hardwired for that. I think it's part of our biological inheritance. As prey animals that work in packs, you've got to be future focused and think about the thing, how to stay safe, right? That makes sense, like enough food for right now versus, winter's coming, we got 6 months. We better start It's like, yeah, there's an evolutionary reason that we do this. I don't think that it's our enemy. But I do think as practitioners, we get to be curious about what it is, how it functions in us, its relationship to our suffering. Just understand, oh, I'm doing that thing. I understand that I'm doing that thing right now. I'm doing that thing that makes me imagine my life is going to be better when fill in the blank happens. So you just had no problem coming up with at least one thing you're waiting for. There's probably 50 people in this room, probably 40 of you thought, I'm waiting for the end of this talk. So am I. 41. So I'm going to talk about waiting as suffering. I'm going to talk about waiting as connection. And then I'm going to talk about waiting as not waiting. Those are the three imaginary forms of waiting that I made up for this talk, just because that's what arose in my heart. The first one we're familiar with, we're already talking about it, waiting as suffering. This is what I experience as restlessness. I've gone to the doctor's office and now I'm sitting in the waiting room. And my appointment is at 11, and it's 11:20, and I've already read this issue of People magazine 4 times. I'm not, you can feel it. Busho is restless. He's waiting. He doesn't want to be waiting. He wants to be there. He's at the DMV waiting for the number to be called. He wants to be up at the register getting his tabs renewed. He doesn't want to be sitting in this chair. Can you feel it? I don't want to be watching the closing credits of MASH. I want to be watching the opening credits of Bridgerton. Come on, man, get to it. Right? Whatever the thing is, I'm just riffing, but you can feel it, right? The reason this is familiar to us is because as people who have a meditation practice, we watch how often we leave the moment, and we catch ourselves, and we bring ourselves back. It's like the most basic meditation instruction there is. They're learning it across the hall right now. Notice how your mind wanders, and just notice how it tells a story about that, and then bring it back. Super cool. Right? So we see this in our lives all the time. Waiting for our ice cream cone to be made, waiting for test results, waiting for the bell to ring, waiting for the email response. It is anxious relationship with a future moment. Wanting to hit fast forward. Or hit pause, I suppose, if you don't want the future to arrive, if you want this moment to stay. We do that a lot. This is waiting as simply anticipatory anxiety and restlessness. We experience this as tension. This is talked about in our tradition as grasping or desire. It's currently dissatisfying because I'm waiting for the thing that I imagine is going to bring satisfaction to arrive. Is this making sense? Mm-hmm. This is something we all get, right? You know, I don't want now. I want then. So we say, I live in the present moment. We hear that teaching a lot. We recognize that our mind's desire to leave the present moment is on some level a dissatisfaction with the present moment. Right? Just like this moment isn't entertaining enough. It isn't good enough. It isn't pleasurable enough. It isn't fulfilling enough. This kind of waiting is an emotional non-space. A space you don't choose to be in but have to. A place of transition between one valued chosen space and another valued chosen space. I'm stealing that from that French architect whose name I can never remember, who invented the term non-space. He was an architect who designed waiting rooms, airports, bus stations, bank lobbies. It's a place you have to be. You have to be there. But you're not going there to be there. You're going there to be someone else, to be somewhere else, and you have to be there. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, like, when I started thinking about this, I was like, oh my God, that's actually brilliant. I love the term non-space. It's obviously a space. But he's just inventing that to be like, you want to go to MSP so you can get on the plane to go to Copenhagen. You want to go to Copenhagen. Copenhagen is a space. You can hardly wait to get there. The whole point is Copenhagen. That's the goal. That's what you're waiting for. So MSP is a non-space. The stupid plane for 13 hours is a frickin' non-space. I don't want to inhabit the plane. No one goes to the airport to inhabit the plane. No one. No one goes to the airport to inhabit the airport. Why? I'm going to go to the airport. Why? To be at the airport. No, shut up. You're never going there to be there. You're going there to move through it and leave it as quickly as you can. So immediately your relationship is the quicker at the airport, the better. The quicker the flight, the better. The quicker it lands, the better. The quicker I'm out of the other airport, the better. Don't like it, don't like it, don't like it, don't like it. Can you feel it? So we can all just be guilty as charged. We all know if that Star Trek technology existed and you could just go, beam me to Copenhagen, you would do it. So I love that. I mean, I think that's funny. I see that in myself. And what I also see, after hanging out at this place for far too long, is I've already made the decision that MSP is not a place worth inhabiting. And the moments that I am there are not moments that I find worthy of inhabiting. My life isn't worthy of paying attention to when I'm at MSP. The plane isn't a place to pay attention to. My experience when I'm on the plane isn't worthy of paying attention to. If I could fast forward that bad boy, isn't that interesting? I've just decided, like all humans do, there are worthy, valuable experiences, and there are unworthy, not valuable experiences. And I call that second category waiting, or non-space, or come on, get to it. I don't want setups, I want nothing but punchlines. My whole life, that's all I want. So I love the beautiful term non-space because of how much time we spend in them. It's emotional waiting. Emotional is a description where we're using the term waiting to describe the emotional relationship with essentially a non-moment. I'm having a non-moment. Hurry up. Right? I want to get to the moment. And then when the moment comes, of course, I want to grab it and pause it. Do you feel it? So this is our life. And we all know this one, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. This is very basic kind of meditative awareness, so there's not too much to say. Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, how much of human life is lost in waiting? Which is a nice question. I don't know how far down that rabbit hole he went, but I like the word choice again because of course it wasn't lost. You were just as alive when you were on the plane as you were when you were in Copenhagen. So you didn't lose anything. There's nothing lost. You're exactly as alive when you're going, oh, hurry up, as when you're, oh, I'm Joyce. I've waited all this time to see you. You're equally alive in both of those moments, right? So I'm assuming what he's referring to there is, well, it's lost because you weren't paying attention to it because you didn't think it mattered. You just didn't think it mattered. And so you weren't present to it. You know, it's usually in retrospect that we realize, oh, that mattered. Shoot. I missed it. Like elementary school mattered. Junior high mattered. I wanted to skip over it to get to the thing that I thought, oh shoot, high school mattered. Oh no, college mattered. Being single mattered. Being married mattered. Being divorced and heartbroken. It mattered. I wanted to skip right over it. That really, really mattered. My life really mattered. My life really thickened. Layers of myself showed themselves I had never seen before. Parts I did not want to feel. Parts I did not want to see. I was waiting for something better. I wanted to fast forward. I was finding those moments unworthy. I was finding my life broken. Can you feel it? I'm waiting for, right? Because then when the thing happens, then I won't have to. Can you feel it? I've already said no. Here's my life showing up and I'm like, nope. Go away and come back better. Show up when you're better. Does that feel right to you guys? Does that resonate? Were you ever told, like, go to your room and come back out when you're not pissed? Come back out when I don't have to see that you're sad? It's just like a way of saying, that feeling, that experience, fast forward over that, please. So we do this to ourselves, right? So, waiting is suffering. But it's going to get a little weird now. Waiting as connection. This is waiting showing up as longing, desire again. But this time, longing, desire is an expression of emotional connection that is already present. And waiting as connection is a choice because it is done in awareness. I'm going to repeat that because I know that was big. Waiting as connection is waiting, showing up as longing, desire again. But this time, longing, desire is an expression of emotional connection that is already present. And so it is a choice because it is made in awareness. You know, like if you're not aware of a choice, you're not aware that you just made a choice. But once you're aware, you're like, oh, that was a choice. Do you feel it? You know, like when you become really aware of, like, I've got a really nasty narrative about my coworker Sam, and every time you watch him, I'm like, God, that guy, oh. But once I become aware, because I started meditating or something, I started going, whoops, I didn't know that was there. I've been working with that guy for 7 years. I've probably thought 15,338 mean thoughts about that guy, but I just saw it. Cool, right? Pretty cool. Because I've been acting from that place for 15,000, blah, 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 blah. But not until now did I know that that was the place I was acting for. So acting from, so yay. And also, uh-oh. Because now that I know it's there, now it's a choice. And every single time after that, that I go, that guy, now it's a choice. You feel where my responsibility kicks in? Like, oh, now you know you're doing it. Ding. That's why people don't like coming to this place. You guys are weird. If you like coming to this place, I'm teasing the Zen Center. I'm teasing meditation because at some point you realize, wait, with awareness comes responsibility. Oh, wait, no. I'm really busy on Saturdays. My schedule's crazy. Sunday mornings, the Vikings are playing the Packers. I got this whole thing. Family's coming over. So, here's my poem. This poem has way more layers than I'm playing with today. I'm just pulling this in as a reason to read it in this room one more time, and because I think it touches ever so lightly on what we're talking about. The poem is Love Dogs by Rumi. It was never written this way. This is more Coleman Barks, the translator and the arranger of Rumi, than it is Rumi, but that's okay. And Love Dogs goes thusly. One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising, until a cynic said, so, I have heard you calling out, but have you ever gotten any response? The man had no answer to that, so he quit praying, and he fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed that he saw Kadir, the guide of souls, in thick green foliage. Why did you stop praising? Because I never heard anything back. This longing that you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you toward union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moan of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. So that's Rumi. Never quote anything that good in the middle of a talk you're giving. Just don't. Just because now I'm done. I mean, whatever, come on. It's like in the middle of your garage band concert. The Beatles show up, play one song, and leave, and you're like, come on, man! So there's so much in that, and I've heard entire Dharma talks in this Zendo given about that poem, as well we should. The longing you express is the return message. The longing you express is the return message. So here's what that brings up. I'm back to my imaginary airport again. When we part company with those that we care about, why do we say, "I'll miss you"? That's a great question, isn't it? Isn't that a great question? When you leave Aunt Bev and you haven't seen her in 10 years, you spent the whole weekend together and it felt so good. See her eyes, hear her voice, you know? To get coffee together, just share air together, and then it's time to go. You brought her to MSP, it's time for her to go. "Oh, Aunt Bev, I love you, I'm gonna miss you, I'm gonna miss you." Isn't that an interesting thing to say? I'm telling you about a future experience I'm going to have of pain as a result of your absence. Right? If Aunt Bev cared about you at all, she would never get on that plane. How dare she hurt you that way? I'm teasing. What it feels like we're saying, "I'll miss you," is saying, my missing you is our connection. My missing you is part of my love. I'm going to love you by missing you. What is grief but love continuing, right? Like my love, my appreciation for seeing your face right now and being in your presence and feeling your skin is going to change in 5 minutes. Because I won't be able to do that. And it's going to show up instead as, "Oh." But you see how I'm smiling? That's the shape it's going to take. That's how it's going to show up. My missing you, my waiting for you, my longing for you, that's the return message. What else is there? This is literally my connection. It's showing up now as appreciation and gratitude. It's going to show up in a few minutes as sadness or longing, right? Or missing. There it is. Isn't that fascinating? That's fascinating. All we're doing here is changing the word. I miss Aunt Bev to, I'm so appreciating Aunt Bev that it's showing up right now. It's missing. Can you imagine turning toward the feeling then, when we call it a different name? Instead of, how do I avoid this feeling? Maybe I'll distract myself. I don't know. So the teaching in the Buddhist tradition, when we are caught by desire, "Oh man, if I only had that ice cream cone. Man, if I only had a bed with a headboard, like a real headboard, like an adult would have." You know? Adults have headboards, right? In one period of my life, I really wanted a headboard. I was like, I will know. I'll be able to face my father if I just had a bed with a headboard, you know? The teaching in the tradition is, it takes a lot of different forms, but the teaching is feel the desire, release the object. So when you go to your teacher and go, "God, I just can't stop thinking about the thing that I want, the person that I want, the job that I want, the headboard that I want, the experience that I want," desire, grasping, missing, future focused, you can feel it, right? If I only had I really want the instruction given to me was feel the desire, release the object. In other words, it's not about a headboard, let the headboard go. Or get it or don't, who cares, it's not about a headboard. But I want you to feel the desire all the way down. Feel it. Because what you're trying to do is get a headboard to make the feeling go away. Do you get it? If you were present, I wouldn't have to miss you. Are you using me to get rid of your feeling of missing? Is that what you're actually, right? Isn't this interesting? We do this all the time. If I only had the thing, then I wouldn't have the experience. I'm still doing it. That's a very fascinating relationship we have. Feel the desire, release the object. That is a very difficult practice. Simple. It's a very simple practice. But what I was being given when I was given that instruction was a redirect. Your focus is out on an object. Your focus is out, away from you, and your focus is on the future. None of those things you can control, and none of them are you. So go back in. I want you to be in loving relationship with your desire. Allow it to arise. Hold it. Hold it. Give it a home. It's okay that it's there. It's okay that it's there. When you have done that, when you are in loving, you know what loving means here, compassionate, wise, just wise, kind, bodhisattvic relationship with desire. It isn't an enemy, you're not trying to defeat it, you're not trying to get rid of it, you're not trying to kill it, you're trying to get past it, you're not trying to fast forward it, you're just accepting it. It's precious, it's infinite, in 100 years it'll be gone, right? Then you can have some clarity about the headboard. Does that make sense? Does that metaphor work? Maybe it only works for me because I had this experience. But when I got the headboard, it didn't work. It didn't work. Right? Because I wasn't with the experience. So this kind of brilliant kung fu move of like, go into your waiting as the connection. Go into your longing as the connection. Does something really, really brilliant. I think it's incredibly sophisticated. That Buddhism has had such an insight into the nature of suffering that it didn't draw the conclusion, headboards for everyone! Because it could have. All we got to do is just make sure everybody gets everything they want all the time, and the world will be a really happy place. Right? They looked so much more deeply than that, just like you do. You look so much more deeply into that. When you're in the doctor's office next time, and you're really, and you're feeling it with your People magazine, I encourage you to try this. The door's going to open, and they're going to say, Miss Jones, come on in, when it happens. But in the meantime, what would it be like to really inhabit that body that you're in? To really inhabit that moment. To not make it a non-space, to not make it a non-moment. To really go into it. Fall in love with waiting you. There's no problem there. So that's the invitation. That's the invitation. Suffering is the desire for something, an experience to be different. If Julie were only here, as opposed to, I fully feel my missing of her, and I know that my missing her is our connection. Now we are in a chosen relationship with wanting. We know it's an experience worth relating to. It's an experience worth describing, inhabiting, and experiencing. It is not a non-space. Our suffering is gone as we are choosing what is. Perhaps pain is still present, the pain of missing, but we are also aware that that pain is connection. And so although it's still pain, it's not a problem. It's not a problem. This makes your waiting a thou. Capital T. Thou. Do we all know the word thou? We don't use it much anymore. It's pretty old school. But we all understand what it implies. Thou is recognizing that it's kind of a namaste, actually. It's kind of like a word that acknowledges deep respect, almost the divinity in the presence of something, to address. You know. Joseph Campbell says, you can address anything as a thou, and you can feel the change in your psychology as you do it. There's another takeaway. If you want to try something today to play with, as you're walking out toward your car, you got car keys in your hands, they're a thou. The more deeply you look into this, the more you're like, yeah, actually you're entirely supporting my life. You are there entirely supporting my life. I'm deeply grateful. You are a thou, and then the car you're going to get in is a thou, and all the other drivers are thou. Thou. Wow. I mean, that really does change your psychology. Tricks that simple. And we don't do them. Why aren't we taught this in school? Isn't that funny? It's funny we're not taught that in school. God, I'm so pissed at you. Cool, let's have that conversation, but I'm going to address you as thou. That's going to help me remember what's going on right now. All right, finally, and then I'll be done here today. I want to play with waiting as not waiting. So this is a little story from the book Long, Quiet Highway by Natalie Goldberg. Who knows Long, Quiet Highway? I knew it. I knew it. That makes me happy. A couple other hands went up. Yeah. Natalie used to practice here at the Minnesota Zen Center many, many years ago during the first years of MZMC being MZMC. I remember one Saturday morning, I was sweeping in the Zen Center kitchen. It was late March, gray, a bit windy, always cold, but bearable now. Winter is back, had been broken. We know that one. You could stand outside and your face wouldn't freeze off. The phone rang. It was Pam. She was already 20 minutes late to pick up Roshi and drive him to the airport. She called to say that she would be another 10. Oh my God, I thought, he's going to miss his plane. I frantically went looking for him. He was standing outside by the curb, next to a valise. It was not a suitcase, modern with zippers and nylon. It was a valise, square, gold-colored with latches. Roshi just stood there in his black robes, as though he had no idea that Pam was late. He stood, not waiting, not impatient, just standing. I ran to him. Roshi, I called. Pam will be another 10 minutes. My hands were thrown up in the air. I was probably shrieking. He nodded unperturbed. Thank you. And he just continued to stand. He wasn't waiting. He wasn't coming. He wasn't going. I walked back up the walkway, broom in hand. Several times I looked back over my shoulder. He was still standing there, a green army jacket over his black priest robes. That presence, that being present, stunned me. My whole body relaxed. It seemed much more important than making the plane. Pam was going to get there when she got there. Meanwhile, he was standing. I became quiet as I returned to sweep the kitchen. So this is waiting as not waiting. He just stood, not waiting, not impatient, just standing. He was utterly standing, back to where we started from. When you plan, just plan, Katagiri once told my teacher Tim, because he could tell that my teacher Tim was trying to do two things at once. He was planning for something and doing something else at the same time, right? And the way Tim tells it is, I was trying not to be seen planning because planning felt like working for the future, and you're not supposed to work for the future. If you're in Zen, you're supposed to always be forever and the future moment, which is why we never plan for anything, and we're always late, and we're just terrible. We're missing planes. It's constant. So Katagiri telling him, no, when you plan, plan. But just plan. Utterly plan. Shikan plan. Right? Shikan. You guys know Shikan. Shikan Taza. To just said, just plan. Just wait. Just. So utterly is the key. Shikan is the key. Utterly is everything. Utterly drops off past and future. He wasn't coming, he wasn't going. He wasn't recovering from walking to the curb, nor was he planning for leaving the curb. This is the cushion you're sitting on, the chair you're sitting in, whatever it is you're sitting in. As long as you watch me, you're sitting there isn't recovering from arriving at that seat, it isn't anticipating leaving that seat. Utterly drops away past and future. Utterly is eternity. Eternity is just no time, the absence of past and future. Utterly is everything. In Zen, utterly means nothing extra. Just do that. Utterly is consecration. Utterly is devotion. Utterly, for us in this tradition, is Zazen. And then, when utterly is actually complete, the word Zazen is extra, and it can fall away. Isn't that nice when you're doing Zazen, it doesn't have to be Zazen anymore, and that word Zazen drops away, and it's not Zazen anymore. That's an extra idea. Who cares? You don't need it. Zen is extra. It's made up. It falls away. It does. It's an idea. It's a bunch of ideas. It's not real. It falls away. It's not unreal. It just isn't real. It falls away. You're just sitting. When our teacher said, just sit, it was like 50 times more profound than we thought it was. Like, oh, now you're making it Zazen. Oh, and now you're making it part of a big special thing. Oh, well, don't disturb Busho. He's doing Zazen. Oh, everybody get out of the way. Don't make any noises. Oh, come on. You feel how precious it becomes? You feel the grasping underneath that? And then you can feel the fear underneath the grasping. Oh no, now it's not utterly at all. Now I'm divided. So utterly is the emptiness of the three wheels. There's no one waiting, there's nothing waited for, so there's no activity called waiting happening. He wasn't waiting, he was just standing. So to those who are waiting, especially in grief, we oftentimes say, in the fullness of time. We know that phrase, right? In the fullness of time. Utterly is fullness. In the fullness of time is now. Always now. Always full. Only this. We consecrate our waiting by doing it utterly. We consecrate our sitting by doing it utterly. Then it stops being anything but fully itself. We don't need labels. This utterly waiting isn't tension with a future moment. It is not endured desire for what is not. It is complete devotion to what is. It does not long to be past. There is nothing extra because it is fullness itself. There is no gap. It is as close as your breath, closer even. And so in closing, because I got to wrap up, it's been 45 minutes. The next time that you find yourself waiting, it'll happen today, I expect, several times. I know it will for me. Just observe the cycling. Just observe. Don't try to make it special. Don't try to be Roshi. Don't try to. Just observe the noticing. Notice how you're present for it and it stops being waiting. Notice how then it's waiting and then suffering is present. Notice how maybe there's this idea that it's a connection to something that I really, really value. And then maybe it's back to waiting again. And it's just endurance and it's white knuckling. And then maybe it's appreciation of connection. And then maybe it stops being either one of those things and you've got 5 breaths of just standing there. And then you remember that you're waiting, and then it comes back again, and then it comes back again. It's okay. Or investigate your experience with beginner's mind and forget everything I've told you. Right? All I'm really suggesting is that it's an experience worth investigating, because it matters. And so pay attention. Let's not make waiting the enemy. Right? Just notice how it changes. Remain the observer. Feel the movement. Feel the contraction in your body. Watch your thoughts. Name and form arise, are recognized, and drop away. It's exactly Zazen. Just notice it come and notice it go. There's no striving necessary because all moments are here. And so the moment you're waiting for is not separate from here. It's okay. That's it. That's all I got, I think. So thank you for your attention. Let's see here. How long is the list, Joe? For just like announcements and stuff. I want to know if we got time to.
It'll take a few minutes, but.
A few? All right. Yeah. We got a couple anyway?
Yeah, we have
1 or 2? Does anybody have anything they'd like to share, ask about, other insights into waiting or different theories or memories of experiencing waiting as painful or memories of experiencing waiting as not painful? I don't know. Anything anybody wants to throw out? Please.
I just love what you had to say about waiting. I have this tendency of grinding my teeth at night.
Oh yeah.
And I guess I just crossed the threshold of 55 to 56. And apparently I started getting a pain through here. And it happened about 2 weeks ago. I thought it originally was a tooth, and basically if anybody's had sciatica, it's literally a very intense pain. And it's basically nerve damage. I didn't know it at the time.
Oh, it's nerves.
Yeah, but they thought it was a tooth. They did the x-ray, not the tooth. And then they did the sinuses, not the sinuses. And basically they said, well, it's broke. And you're basically just going to have to do this physical therapy.
Gotcha.
And that's what I dealt with last week. So now I'm waiting for the pain to go away.
Yeah.
So that's what I find with age. And I love that you brought up 100 years, we're going to be gone. I'm okay with that.
You.
Because I've noticed as I get older, I start getting these pains. And I wait for them to go away, but they don't.
Yeah.
They don't go away. What I noticed though with my the exercise that they gave me is that, well, you should breathe, meditate, and make sure your muscles are loose. So I've used it like not pain as something waiting. I'm waiting for it to go away, but as a reminder, okay, I need to sit here and relax. And even now, like it hurt, but like I feel my jaw relaxing, so it's become an exercise.
Yeah.
Meditation.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Pain is a reminder of something that's present, right? Wow. Isn't that cool? That's really cool. I'm hurting down here. That's a very different way of relating to it. There's the connection, right? Like, oh, this is my connection to you. Oh, you're giving me a message, aren't you? Okay. Okay. Wow, I mean, I love your example because it's physical pain. Physical pain. And what I love that you're playing with is the choice whether or not to make that suffering. Right? You understand the distinction we make in Buddhism between pain and suffering. Pain, yep, it hurts. Suffering, I wish it didn't hurt. What's wrong with me? God, I'm so stupid. Okay, all the little layers of drama, right? So playing with, well, pain is present. It just is. That's part of the thing that you're experiencing. But I love that you're right on the edge of like, what's the part of me that's wishing that this was different right now? And the meaning making, oh, this is about aging or decay or the inevitability of pointless death. Oh, good Lord. No. It can be something else entirely. I love the relationship. That feels very loving, actually. I just noticed how your voice softened by the end there. How you're like, it's wanting me and I have to do my exercises. I mean, you're even touching, your face very tenderly when did you notice that? Like, oh, yeah. Thank you. That's nice. Elliot, my screen, there's a little hand that says, Elliot.
Hi, Moshe.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Good to see you. This might be the same practice, but I was curious if you were adding, who'd add anything to this. I was curious about when you're tending to someone else's waiting, and maybe someone without a practice similar to what we're working on. Even my dog is sitting here and he's whining at me because he wants me to play with him. And I'm just thinking about how you might keep the exact same teaching you gave here, or if you would add some things about being with other people in their waiting moments.
That's a lovely question, and it took me a second to figure out you're Elliot. Hi, Elliot. I know you. I know you. Oh, actually, I recognize a lot of these people. Oh, that's so cool. My glasses have a weird focal point, so like right now it's just like a shiny box, I guess, and now it's like people. That's a great question, and I know we're on the clock here. I actually, that's a lovely question because it's relationship, right? And I love that you like have a dog whining next to you as I'm reading the poem about the dog whining. Symmetry. If I am with someone who is waiting, what it sounds like you're describing is I am with someone who is anxious right now. Is that right? Yeah, there's the nod. So it's like I'm waiting with somebody who's having a really strong experience of anxiety. Or nervousness. Okay, yeah. When you woke up this morning, you woke up into a world where you are with 8 billion people who are anxious. That's a true thing. All of us have a certain level of background fear, anxiety, trepidation, resistance, whatever word we want to plug in there. That's just part of the human experience. Again, we evolved as prey. Prey animals are anxious because they're food. Right, we're food. We haven't figured out yet that like, oh my God, we're still food. So universal experience is, of course, what you're saying there. Where is Zen going to go with that? Where Zen's going to go with that is notice what you feel in response to their fear. Right, because of course their fear isn't a problem. They're scared. They're impatient. They're restless. They're anxious. I totally get that. Yep, there you are. There you are. I think the tendency for all of us is, I better take care of that. And if I'm really, really good and I'm really, really honest, it's because your experience is making me uncomfortable. And so if I could calm you down then I'm going to feel more relaxed. So this movement, I hate to be this technical, but that's actually violence. I'm actually wanting you to be different, and I'm wanting to control you so I feel better. That's actually violence. It's very, very, very subtle violence, right? I'm not going to get a sticker on my car about that kind of violence, probably. But technically speaking, yeah, I'm imagining that you are creating my suffering, just like your anxious friend is imagining that the waiting is causing her suffering. It isn't. She's just sitting in a room, right? But if like, oh God, I'm with you and you're really, really anxious, my tendency as a meditator might be like, maybe there's this really cool kick-ass Zen trick I can pull right now that's gonna make you chill and then make me chill, and maybe even somebody will recognize it and go, wow. And then I'm going to have my need for importance met. Can you feel it? I'm teasing. I know that's not where Elliot is going. That's totally my projection. Did you see what that guy did in the waiting room with that anxious kid? Wow. And he turned the water into wine. It's a beautiful question. Yeah, we just care for, of course, we just turn toward and care for our own experience. Yeah. Does that make sense, folks? Yeah, we do this all the time. It's a beautiful question. All right, we got to wrap up here. So, Joe, please take the reins.